Hello everyone, welcome to today's story. Today we're diving into a terrifying legend about the hungry ghost realm, which comes from Japanese Buddhist culture. In Buddhism, the hungry ghost realm is a place of great suffering. Those who were greedy, selfish, and showed no compassion in their life fall into this realm after death. Here, these souls experience endless hunger and thirst. No matter what they eat or drink, they can never be satisfied. Today's story is about how one person gets trapped in the terrifying world of the hungry ghosts. Tanaka Kenichi had always been a typical success story. He had wealth, status, and a luxurious life that others could only dream of. But behind his success, there was darkness. Kenichi was a self-made businessman, but his journey had been filled with failure and hardship. He went bankrupt multiple times, was betrayed, and even lived on the streets begging for food. Those painful days left deep scars on him, turning him cold and heartless. As time passed, Kenichi found a way to make up for his past failures by exploiting others. He didn't care if his methods were fair or right, and he used deceit and manipulation to get ahead. To make more profit, he exploited his workers, underpaid them, and even produced low-quality goods on purpose. The small businesses he destroyed, often overnight, were just stepping stones for him. In Kenichi's world, only the strong deserved to survive, and the weak were destined to fail. But Kenichi never expected karma to come so swiftly and terrifyingly. One night, while driving home, Kenichi suddenly lost control of his car in an accident. The vehicle swerved off the road and crashed violently into a tree. In that moment of impact, Kenichi felt a powerful force pulling him into darkness. His consciousness quickly faded, and everything went black. He didn't know if he was dead, but when he opened his eyes again, the world around him had completely changed. Kenichi found himself lying in a vast, desolate landscape. The ground beneath him was cracked and dry, the air thick with the stench of decay, like the world was filled with rotting corpses. The sky was dark and heavy, as if the sun had never existed. The whole place felt like an abandoned hell, and Kenichi seemed to be the only living thing there. Struggling to his feet, Kenichi's heart raced with fear. He didn't know where he was, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Is this a dream?" he muttered, but a sudden intense pain shot through his stomach, breaking his thoughts. It was hunger, a kind of hunger Kenichi had never felt before. It was like something inside him was being torn apart, as if his insides were screaming for relief. He clutched his stomach, trying to ease the pain, but the hunger only grew worse. Then from behind him, Kenichi heard slow, heavy footsteps. He quickly turned and saw a horrifying figure approaching him. It was a gaunt, skeletal creature, like a dried-up corpse. Its skin clung to its bones, its eyes were sunken deep into its skull, and its lips were cracked and dry. The creature's eyes were lifeless, filled only with emptiness and despair. Who are you?" Kenichi shouted, his voice shaking with fear. The creature stopped and cracked a grin with its dried, thin lips. It let out a sharp, mocking laugh.
"Who am I? I'm just like you,"
it said in a low voice.
"Welcome to the realm of the hungry ghosts."
Hungry ghosts. Kenichi furrowed his brow. He had heard of this term before. In Buddhist teachings, hungry ghosts, or gaki, were souls of those who had lived lives filled with greed, cruelty, and selfishness. These souls were condemned to an eternity of hunger, forever chasing desires they could never satisfy. No, this can't be happening. I'm still alive. I can't be here." Kenichi shook his head in denial. The creature's laugh grew colder. "You think you're still alive?"
"You think you can escape this place? You've already fallen into the realm of hungry ghosts, just like the rest of us. You'll suffer the hunger forever."
Once again, Kenichi felt sharp pain in his stomach, like countless needles stabbing at his insides. He clutched his abdomen in agony as the world around him began to twist and blur. He collapsed onto the ground, his hands digging into the dirt, desperately seeking comfort, but the hunger only intensified. In the distance, Kenichi saw something on the ground, what looked like pieces of rotten food scattered across the dirt. The smell was sickening, the meat decayed and covered in flies, but the gnawing hunger inside him clouded his mind. Desperately, he crawled towards the rotting food, grabbed a piece, and shoved it into his mouth. The taste was foul, but Kenichi kept swallowing, consumed by his need to fill the emptiness inside. However, as soon as the meat touched his tongue, it turned into ash and crumbled into a disgusting, filthy liquid. His throat seemed to close, and he couldn't swallow it. Kenichi gagged, trying to spit it out, but the hunger only got worse.
You'll never fill your stomach. Never.
The creature's voice echoed in his ears like a cruel taunt from the depths of hell. Kenichi collapsed onto the ground in despair, his vision growing blurry. Just when he thought he was about to fall into endless darkness, a calm, deep voice broke through the silence. "You still have a chance." Kenichi lifted his head, and there, standing before him, was a man dressed in gray robes. His face was peaceful and serene, completely out of place in this decaying world. "A chance?" Kenichi's voice trembled with desperation. The man nodded slowly, his eyes filled with pity. "You're not really dead. You're in a trial, somewhere between life and death. This place, the realm of hungry ghosts, is your future if you don't change your path. But nothing is final yet. You can still change it." Kenichi stared at the man in shock. "I'm not dead." The man gave a faint smile and shook his head. "No, you're still alive. But your soul has touched the edge of this realm. The way you lived, your greed and cruelty, has brought you to the door of hell. If you continue like this, you will fall into this endless hunger and suffering." Kenichi felt as though something had clenched tightly around his heart. For the first time, he realized that this wasn't a dream. It was a warning, showing him the true consequences of his life choices. What can I do?" Kenichi asked, his voice trembling with fear and regret. "Return to your life. Let go of your greed. Learn compassion and kindness. If you don't, the realm of hungry ghosts will be your eternal fate." The man's voice was calm but firm. Kenichi remained silent for a moment, his heart filled with guilt and terror. He knew he had to change, or else endless suffering awaited him. "I'll change," Kenichi whispered, speaking both to the man and to himself. The man gave a slight nod and then turned, disappearing into the thick fog. Once again, Kenichi felt a sharp dizziness. The world around him spun, and he closed his eyes as his consciousness slipped into darkness. Kenichi woke up suddenly, finding himself lying in a hospital bed. Doctors and nurses were rushing around him. His body was still weak, but his mind was flooded with shock. The car accident hadn't taken his life, but what he had just experienced wasn't simply a dream. It was a warning, a glimpse into his future, a trial for his soul. He took a deep breath and looked out the window. The world outside was as busy and noisy as ever, as if nothing had changed. But Kenichi knew something inside him had shifted. He had seen the gates of hell, and he knew they could open for him at any moment. From that day forward, Kenichi vowed to change his ways,